My wife cheated on me with our real estate agent, then secretly transferred $250, $0 of our savings into her sister's account before filing for divorce. Now she's claiming I'm trying to steal everything, and our home's value plummeting in litigation. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, especially not after 11 years of marriage. It all started with a gut feeling that something was off, but I brushed it aside. My wife had always been a bit bitchy and manipulative, but I loved her, or at least I thought I did. She was the type to lie about small things, then get defensive when questioned, so I learned to ignore the little red flags. But then came the big red flag, the one that hit me like a freight train I never saw coming. It was about 3 weeks ago when I noticed her acting strangely. She was more irritable than usual, snapping at me over nothing, canceling plans last minute. She was secretive with her phone, always hiding it when I came near, and I caught her deleting messages more than once. I brushed it off at first, convincing myself she was stressed or had some work thing she didn't want to share. But then I started noticing money missing from our joint account. Small amounts at first, 500 here, $1, $0 there. I thought maybe she was just making some personal purchases, but the pattern didn't sit right. One night, I decided to check her phone when she went to bed early. I know that's invasive, but I was desperate for answers. What I found was worse than I imagined. She'd been texting our real estate agent, Mark, nonstop. The messages weren't just about house stuff. They were flirty, intimate. I saw exchanges about their secret meetings, plans for sex, and even her calling him the best thing that ever happened to her. My stomach dropped. It was like watching a movie I never wanted to see, only it was real. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I started digging deeper. I pulled bank statements and discovered she transferred $250, $0 of our savings into her sister's account, an account I didn't even know she had access to. That kind of money, gone without my knowledge, and she was planning to divorce me, claiming I'd been trying to steal everything all along. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and furious. How could she do this? After everything we built, she was throwing it all away for some guy I'd never even met. The next day, I sat her down, my heart pounding. I confronted her with the evidence. Her reaction: she spun it like I was crazy, saying I'd been paranoid, that Mark was just a friend, that I was imagining things. She called me possessive and jealous, accused me of trying to ruin her life. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I'd seen enough to know the truth. She was cheating, lying, and stealing from us all at once. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was the look in her eyes, that cold, unapologetic glare that said she didn't care about the damage she'd caused. I felt like I was in some nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I was angry, yes, but also devastated. How could she do this? How could she betray me after all these years, not just emotionally but financially? I started questioning everything: our marriage, her love, my sanity. I had always prided myself on being a good husband, the kind who'd work hard, support his family, and trust his wife. But now I couldn't trust her with anything. The woman I thought I knew was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize. That night I stayed up staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The lies, the deception, the betrayal. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. I kept asking myself if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind. And then I thought about the money, her secret transfer, the affair, the divorce papers she was preparing. It all hit me like a tidal wave. She was planning to walk away with everything, and I was left with nothing but a broken heart and a house that was now just a house, no longer our home. I knew then I had to do something. I couldn't let her get away with this. I started formulating a plan, trying to figure out how to fight back, how to protect what was left of my life. But I also knew that once I stepped into this, there was no turning back. This wasn't just about money or infidelity anymore. It was about my dignity, my respect, my future. And I wasn't going to let her take that from me without a fight. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became that I couldn't just sit back and let her walk all over me. She thought she could manipulate her way out of this mess, spin her lies, and come out smelling like a victim. But I wasn't going to let her do that, not after everything. I started gathering evidence, not just the bank statements and her messages, but also recording our conversations whenever she got particularly bitchy or tried to deny everything. I knew I needed proof, solid, irrefutable proof, if I was going to fight her in court or confront her with the truth publicly. The first thing I did was go to a lawyer. I wanted to understand my rights, how much she could legally take, and what I needed to do to protect myself. The lawyer was pretty straightforward. He told me that the transfer of $250, $0 without my consent was a red flag, and that her attempt to hide assets and then file for divorce could be challenged. But I had to act fast. I started digging into the financials more, calling in favors, and even hiring a private investigator to follow her when she went out. I needed to know who she was meeting, where she was going, and if she was still in contact with Mark. Meanwhile, kept up her act. She was bitchy, dismissive, and at times outright hostile. She'd say I was paranoid, that I was trying to ruin her reputation, that I was trying to steal everything because I was insecure. She spun stories about how she was just trying to fix our marriage, and that I was accusing her of things she didn't do. But her actions told a different story. I saw her sneaking around, meeting with Mark more than once, and I had the photos from the pie to prove it. She'd even lied about where she was going, claiming she was at her sister's house when she was actually with him. It was around this time that I discovered she'd been secretly transferring money into her sister's account, the same account she claimed was just for emergencies. I found bank statements showing repeated deposits, sometimes thousands at a time, all under the guise of loan repayment or family support. But I knew better. She'd been funneling our savings into her sister's account, probably planning to use it as a safety net after she left me. That was the moment I realized she was planning to disappear with everything, and she didn't care who got hurt in the process. I decided I needed to confront her again, this time with more evidence. I set up a meeting at our house, telling her I wanted to talk about the divorce and sorting out the finances. She showed up looking annoyed, trying to act like everything was normal, but I was ready. I laid out the bank statements, the proof of her affair, and the recordings of her lying about her whereabouts. Her face twisted in anger, then in denial. She spun a story about how I was crazy, that I'd been spying on her, and that she was only trying to help her sister. She insisted she had done nothing wrong, that all the money transfers were just a mistake, and that Mark was just a friend. But I wasn't buying it. I saw through her lies, and I knew she was trying to manipulate her way out of it as usual. I told her that I had enough evidence to take her to court, that I was going to fight for our home and our savings. Her bitchy attitude escalated into full-blown rage. She called me paranoid, possessive, and even crazy. She accused me of trying to control her, of trying to ruin her reputation, and then she claimed she was the victim. That moment was surreal, watching her turn everything around and try to make me look like the bad guy when I knew the truth. That night, I sat alone in the dark, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and helplessness. I'd never felt so powerless, yet so determined to fight. I realized that she'd been planning this for a while, and I had to act fast if I wanted to save what was left of our life together. I started drafting legal documents, planning my next move. I knew she was going to try to spin the story, to paint herself as the innocent wife, but I had enough proof to expose her lies. It was only a matter of time before everything came out in the open. In the meantime, I also started looking into the market value of our house, gathering estimates and putting together a strategy for what I'd do if she pushed through with her plans to sell or hide it. I couldn't let her get away with just walking out with everything. I had to protect what was mine, what we had built together. The betrayal was one thing, but losing my home and savings would be a blow I might not recover from. I knew I had to be strategic, patient, and relentless. I was pissed off, furious, honestly, but I also knew that I had to keep my cool if I wanted to win this fight. Every day since then has been a whirlwind of legal calls, private investigators, and sleepless nights. I'm preparing myself for what's coming, the courtroom battles, the accusations, the lies she'll tell. I don't know exactly how this will end, but I do know one thing: I'm not going down without a fight. I've seen how low she can go, and I won't let her destroy everything we once had. I just hope I can. come out of this with some shred of dignity intact. It's a mess, but I'm holding on. After I gathered all the evidence and confronted again, I thought I might get some kind of remorse or at least a hint of guilt from her. But no. She doubled down on her lies, her bitchy attitude turning up to 11. She started throwing accusations at me, claiming I was controlling, that I was the one cheating and trying to steal from her. Honestly, I'd never seen her so manipulative, so cold. She kept insisting I was paranoid, that I was just jealous of her success with Mark, that I was trying to ruin her reputation because I was insecure. It was almost laughable if it wasn't so infuriating. But I knew better. I knew what she was capable of. She'd been planning this from the start, transferring money, sneaking around, lying through her teeth. And her reaction to being caught, classic. She tried to gaslight me, to make me doubt myself, to make me think I was overreacting. She said she only ever wanted to save our marriage, that Mark was just a friend, and that I was blowing everything out of proportion. She looked me dead in the eyes and told me I was making everything up. That's when I realized she was a master at manipulation, and I couldn't trust a word she said anymore. I decided I needed to get more serious. I contacted a forensic accountant and a private investigator to dig even deeper. I wanted to see if she'd hidden more money, more assets, or anything else that could work against her. The accountant confirmed what I suspected. She'd been funneling money into her sister's account over the last 6 months, dragging out the transfers so I wouldn't notice until it was too late. The pie followed to her meetings, caught her with Mark more than once. She was definitely still seeing him, probably planning her escape while feigning innocence to everyone else. Meanwhile, the house's value kept dropping in the market, and I knew I had to act fast. I started looking into refinancing options, trying to get my hands on some cash to protect the property. I also began preparing for the legal fight, drafting motions to freeze her assets and prevent her from selling the house without my consent. I knew she'd try to do exactly that, sell the house, hide the money, and disappear with her new lover and the cash. It was clear she had no intention of stopping her manipulative games, but I wasn't going to let her get away with it. Her reaction, predictably, was to escalate her bitchiness. She accused me of trying to ruin her life, insisted I was the real bad guy, and claimed I was trying to take everything just because I was jealous of her affair. She called me possessive, paranoid, and even abusive. She threw in some tears, some fake apologies, then quickly switched back to her usual cold, bitchy attitude. It was exhausting. She kept insisting she had done nothing wrong and that I was the one trying to control her. That's when I realized she was so deep in her lies, she'd spun herself into a corner where she believed her own bullshit. One night, I caught her texting Mark again. I saw the messages pop up on her phone when she went to the bathroom. It was more than flirtatious, more than just friendly. They were talking about meeting up again, about taking things to the next level, and she even called him her secret lover. I couldn't believe it. The woman I'd married was basically running a full-on affair behind my back while secretly draining our savings to fund it. That night I felt my blood boil. How could she be so selfish, so heartless? I decided I needed to get serious. I drafted a detailed plan to confront her with everything, proof, recordings, bank statements, everything. I was ready to show her that her lies wouldn't hold up. I also arranged a meeting with my lawyer to prepare for the upcoming court battle. The goal was to get a court order to freeze her assets, including the house, and to prevent her from selling or hiding anything else. I knew she'd fight dirty, but I was prepared for that. I'd already seen her lie and manipulate her way out of situations before. In the meantime, I started talking to some of our neighbors and friends I trusted. I needed witnesses, people who could testify to her behavior and her lies. I also made sure to keep a detailed journal of everything: her actions, her words, the money transfers, her meetings with Mark. I knew this was only the beginning, and I had to be meticulous if I wanted to win this fight. I was angry, hurt, and betrayed beyond words, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I was finally seeing her for who she truly was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd do anything to get what she wanted, even if it meant destroying everything we'd built. As I sat in my empty house that night, I looked around and realized I was at a crossroads. I could let her walk away, take everything and suffer silently, or I could fight for what was rightfully mine. I chose the latter. I knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy and there would be plenty more lies, accusations, and emotional chaos. But I was done being the victim. From now on, it was about standing up for myself, exposing her lies, and making sure she paid for what she'd done. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting for my dignity, my sanity, and my future. The day I finally decided to take legal action felt like stepping into a war I wasn't fully prepared for. But I knew I couldn't back down now. I had all the evidence lined up, her secret bank transfers, the explicit messages with Mark, recordings of her lying about her whereabouts. I had the lawyer, the investigator, and a plan. Still, I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me as I sat in that cold, sterile office, watching her face flash across the screen as my lawyer laid out the options. She was trying to act innocent, of course. Sitting there with her bitchy smirk, she insisted she'd done nothing wrong, that I was just jealous and paranoid. She claimed she transferred the money into her sister's account to help her out. That Mark was just a friend she'd been talking to about real estate, and that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. She threw in a few tears, pretending to be the victim, saying she only wanted to fix our marriage and that I was pushing her away. But I knew better. I saw through her bullshit. My lawyer filed the paperwork for a temporary restraining order to freeze her assets, including the house, and to prevent her from selling or hiding anything else. That was a big step, and honestly, I felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. Relief because I was finally doing something, and anxiety because I knew she'd go full manipulative bitch mode to fight back. Sure enough, the moment she got the court summons, she started spinning her lies even more aggressively. She called me a monster, a crazy controlling husband, and accused me of trying to steal her happiness. She insisted I was the one cheating, that I'd been unfaithful and trying to ruin her reputation. She even tried to turn the court against me, claiming I'd been abusive and possessive. I was furious. I had all the proof she needed to be exposed, and I wasn't going to let her get away with this. But I also knew that once the court got involved, everything would escalate. The court hearing was brutal. She showed up looking all bitchy and entitled, wearing her usual smug expression. I sat across from her, feeling the adrenaline surge through my veins. My lawyer laid out the evidence, her bank transfers, her messages, the recordings, and presented my case for the restraining order. Reaction: she tried to deny everything, claiming I'd planted the evidence, that I was trying to ruin her life out of jealousy. She insisted she'd done nothing wrong, that she was just trying to protect her family. The judge listened carefully, asking questions, weighing the evidence, and finally granted the restraining order, temporarily freezing her assets and preventing her from selling the house. That was a small victory, but I knew it wouldn't be the end. Was furious, and I could see her plotting her next move. She started lawyer up, hired her own attorney, and began pushing back hard. She filed for divorce, claiming I was trying to steal everything, that I'd been controlling and abusive. Her accusations were classic, trying to paint herself as the victim while I was the villain. But I had the evidence, I had witnesses, and I had the law on my side. Still, I knew she'd pull every dirty trick in the book to try and get what she wanted. Meanwhile, the house's value kept dropping, and I was scrambling to protect it. I reached out to real estate agents, trying to get a fair assessment, and contacted a property appraiser to get an independent valuation. I also started looking into refinancing options to buy her out or at least protect my equity. But every time I thought I was gaining some ground, she'd throw a new curveball, more accusations, more lies, more threats. She started claiming I was abusing her, even tried to get a restraining order against me, which was utterly ridiculous. I had the recordings, the messages, the bank statements. I was ready to fight that too. The emotional toll was brutal. I felt like I was on anger, sadness, frustration, hopelessness, all swirling inside me. I was furious at her for betraying me, for stealing our savings, for cheating behind my back. But I was also heartbroken, wondering where I went wrong, questioning if I'd missed the signs. I'd built a life with her, believed in her, loved her. And now I was watching it all fall apart piece by piece. Sometimes I'd sit alone in the house, staring at the walls, feeling the emptiness settle in. It was over, I knew that now, but it still hurt like hell. Despite everything, I refused to give up. I kept pushing forward, gathering every piece of evidence, consulting with my lawyer, and preparing for the inevitable. Courtroom battles. I also made sure to keep a record of all her manipulations, her lies, her threats, her attempts to turn the court against me. I knew she'd try to spin the story to make me look like the bad guy. But I was determined to tell the truth, no matter how ugly it was. I had to be strong for myself and for whatever was left of the life I once believed in. I wasn't just fighting for the house or the money. I was fighting for my sanity, my dignity, and the last remnants of the marriage I thought I had. It's incredible how fast everything can unravel when trust is broken. One moment you're living your life, thinking everything is fine, and the next, your world is upside down. But I've learned one thing: when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Showed me her true colors: selfish, manipulative, and utterly ruthless. And now I'm doing everything I can to make sure she doesn't get away with it. I don't know how this will end, but I do know I'm not giving up. Not without a fight. The court battles kept escalating, and every day felt like I was walking through a minefield. Was relentless, fighting dirty, lying, twisting everything I presented. Her new lawyer was aggressive, and I could tell she was trying to drag this out as long as possible to wear me down. She kept claiming I was an abusive, controlling husband trying to take everything from her, even though I had mountains of proof to the contrary. The recordings, the bank statements, the witness testimonies, they all painted a very different picture. Meanwhile, I was pouring my energy into protecting what little I could. I managed to get a court-appointed appraiser to value the house independently. The valuation was far below what we'd paid for it, which was a blow, but it was enough to show I wasn't trying to cheat her out of her fair share. I also pushed for an equitable division of assets, making sure she couldn't just walk away with everything. I had to be strategic. If she sold the house or hid assets, I'd be left with nothing. That's when I really started feeling the pressure mounting. Money was the biggest issue. She had secretly transferred so much of our savings into her sister's account that I had to get a court order to freeze those funds. The more I looked into it, the more I realized how deep her deception went. She'd been funneling money into her sister's account for months, claiming it was helping out the family, but I knew better. That money was supposed to be our security, and now it was gone, or at least hidden beyond my reach. I felt anger boil up every time I saw those transactions. Her attempt to turn the court against me was infuriating. She hired her own attorney who was good at spinning stories. She claimed I was abusive, that I'd been controlling her, that I was trying to take everything because I was jealous of Mark. All lies. I had the recordings where she admitted to meeting him, flirting, and planning to cheat. I had her texts where she called him her secret lover. I had everything. But that didn't seem to matter to her lawyer, who kept pushing the narrative that I was the villain. I could see her behind the scenes smirking, thinking she was winning. One of the darkest moments was when she accused me of domestic abuse, trying to get a restraining order against me. I was stunned. All I ever did was try to keep our marriage together, and now she was painting me as an abuser. I knew I had to fight that with everything I had. I presented the court with the recordings, the witnesses, and my own testimony. It was exhausting, but I refused to let her manipulate the system to her advantage. The judge saw through her lies and her request, but I knew this was just another tactic in her playbook. Throughout all this chaos, I kept feeling the emotional toll. I'd sit alone at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how I ended up here. How did I miss the signs? How could she betray me like this? I loved her, or at least I thought I did, and now I was fighting to save what was left of my dignity. The betrayal was like a wound that refused to heal, and every new lie or scheme she threw at me felt like salt rubbed into it. Yet amid the chaos, I also learned something important. I couldn't control her. I couldn't change her or make her see reason. All I could do was gather proof, stay calm, and fight legally. The more she tried to manipulate, the more I realized I had to stay one step ahead. I started documenting everything meticulously: every email, every phone call, every meeting. I knew she'd try to lie her way out of this, but I had enough evidence to blow her stories apart. One thing I couldn't ignore anymore was the house itself. The market value was dropping steadily, and I knew she'd try to pressure me into a quick sale or worse. I started exploring options to buy her out or at least delay her plans. I also looked into refinancing, trying to secure enough cash to keep the house afloat and protect my equity. It wasn't easy. I was stretched thin, emotionally drained, but I refused to give her the satisfaction of winning. Every day brought new surprises, new lies, new manipulations. But I was learning how to stay grounded, how to keep my head clear amidst the chaos. I realized that this wasn't just a fight for money or a house. It was a fight for my reputation, my future, and my sanity. I had to be strong, even when I felt weak. I had to keep pushing forward, no matter how much she tried to tear me down with her bitchy attitude and her endless lies. I kept telling myself that at the end of this, I'd come out of it stronger. Maybe battered, maybe, but with my integrity intact. I'd learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals who your true friends are and what you're really made of. I still don't know how this will end, but I do know I won't let her destroy what's left of my life without a fight. That's what keeps me going, the hope that truth, evidence, and justice will prevail in the end. The final stretch of this nightmare has been the most exhausting yet. After months of legal battles, evidence gathering, and watching her manipulate every system she could, I finally got to stand before the court and tell my side. Honestly, I'd never been so drained in my life, but I knew I had to stay strong, not just for myself, but for the truth. Lies had become so elaborate, so desperate, that it was almost comical if it weren't so heartbreaking. When I presented all my evidence, her secret bank transfers, the recordings of her admitting to her affair, the witness testimonies, the judge saw through her bullshit. Her face twisted, trying to hold her composure, but she was visibly rattled. Her lawyer tried to object, to spin her lies, but the court wasn't having it. The judge ordered her to release the funds she'd hidden, froze her assets, and issued a clear directive. She was not to sell or transfer the house until everything was sorted out. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental after all the chaos. Reaction: she stormed out of the courtroom, bitching and screaming about how I was trying to ruin her life. She called me a vindictive husband, a control freak, and claimed I was trying to steal her happiness. But I knew better. I had the evidence. I had the truth. And I was finally starting to see some light after months of darkness. The house was still in limbo, but I'd managed to get some breathing room. I refinanced, pulled together enough cash to cover legal fees and to buy her out if necessary. I also made arrangements to sell the house, but only after I'd secured my stake. I refused to let her sell it first and walk away with everything. I knew she'd try to manipulate her way out of this, but I was prepared for her last-ditch efforts. What I didn't expect was her to really give up so easily. Once she realized she was beaten, her bitchy facade cracked. She tried to guilt-trip me one last time, crying about how much she loved me and how she'd been forced into this mess. But I was done listening. I saw her for what she was, a selfish, manipulative woman who'd betrayed me, lied to everyone, and stolen from us all for her own selfish reasons. In the end, I moved out of the house. I found a small apartment nearby and started piecing my life back together. It's not easy, the scars run deep, but I'm learning to trust again, slowly. I've realized that betrayal like this changes you, but it also teaches you who you really are. I'm stronger than I thought, more cautious, more aware of the red flags. I learned that sometimes the people closest to you can turn out to be the biggest liars, and you have to be prepared to fight for yourself. Looking back, I wish I could say I found some profound lesson or a happy ending. But honestly, it's just been a brutal reminder that love and trust are fragile, and that sometimes the people you care about the most can hurt you the worst. Still, I'm proud of how I handled it. I stood my ground, I fought for what was rightfully mine, and I refused to be a victim of her manipulations. I've come out the other side battered but wiser. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this: trust your instincts. When something feels wrong, don't ignore it. Gather your proof, get help if you need it, and don't be afraid to fight for yourself. Betrayal cuts deep, but it also reveals your strength. I don't know what the future holds, but I know I won't let someone like her destroy what I worked so hard to build. I'll rebuild, I'll recover, and I'll keep going. Because at the end of the day, the only person who truly has your back is yourself.